This is the Live Like Warriors podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kenny. We've got a lot to cover today, so let's get right into it. I am incredibly excited about this episode because I've got a very special friend here with me, Jennifer Thompson. Welcome to the Live Like Warriors podcast. And we've got so much to cover. And Jennifer has been a very close friend of mine and it's amazing just the things that we've gotten to do together already, how we met, the story about your son, Jace, and his battle with DIPG, a form of brain cancer. And we're going to talk all about Jace. We're going to talk about and really help people understand what DIPG even is. But the big thing that I'm hoping that our listeners gain from this is an understanding of how to get involved, because I think that so many of us are always thinking, you know what, we're bleeding hearts out here. We want to help the people that need help. And the kids and the families that are battling something that no kid deserves to go through. And a lot of us just don't always know what to do, what to say, and how to really help. And if we got anything today, that's what my goal would be, is to equip. If you're listening out there and you've ever asked that question, I want to get involved, I want to help, but I really don't know what to do. This podcast episode will help our listeners to do that, to get out there, to get out on the battlefield and fight for other people. And so I'm excited because, Jennifer, you're going to help a lot of people do just that. So welcome to Kernersville, North Carolina.
I love it. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun.
Yeah.
We first met back in, I want to say it was 2018 or something, but it was through a mutual friend that we had, Megan Jones. Do you remember that we met?
I do.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So Kyler Jones was going through brain cancer treatment at that time. And I don't really remember even how Megan connected the two of us. I think it was through the monster trucks, right? Because Jace was a huge monster truck fan.
Yes,
okay.
He was.
Now, do you remember what his favorite was? Did he have a favorite, or did he just
He did have a favorite, Mohawk Warrior.
Was it?
I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I've heard of him.
Okay.
Some people think he's a nice guy.
Yeah. He's, after getting to know him, he's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well,
how fitting that was his favorite.
I don't know if you're just telling me that Mohawk Warrior was his favorite, or if he actually was his favorite, but I'm going to accept it.
I think you should.
Okay, good. Well, I just latched on to Jace's story right away, because not just because he loved monster trucks, but it was also crazy to me just the what he was going through and your family was going through, and unfortunately I never got to meet Jace, and that's one of my biggest regrets. And we're going to talk about the type of cancer that he had. But I want everyone to understand a couple things about you before we get into Jace's story. If you've ever seen one of our campaigns through Live Like Warriors, chances are it was a campaign for someone in a family that you brought to me. And I think the very first one that we ever worked on together, because I started maybe right at the beginning of my Monster Jam stuff, because if anyone out there knows my story, my niece had cancer when she was 2.5 years old, and softball-sized tumor on her kidney. That was a Wilms tumor. And they got the tumor removed, and now she's a sixth grader in middle school, and dealing with what sixth graders in middle school, as a female in middle school, what you deal with, which is, don't take me back to middle school anyway. But she's doing that, and it was amazing just to see our own family story go through that, and understanding how people and families react to all that stuff. But here you are today, you're still engaged in a lot of people's lives, and a lot of families going through treatment and what they deal with. And so Jennifer's somebody, though, that constantly, her and I are talking about needs, and you see needs that pop up. But the very first one is what I was starting to say, was the sectional. I think it was the sectional that we did for Ozzy out in Oregon, wasn't it?
It was.
And you had texted me and you said, hey, I don't even remember how you got to thinking about whether we would have the connections. Now that I'm sitting here unpacking this, when you first texted me about that, how did we first start talking about Ozzy and the fact that the family needed a sectional? He had just been diagnosed with DIPG, and the family put out a message saying, does anyone have any extra living room furniture? Because we're at the hospital so much, when we're home, we just want to snuggle up and be together.
Right.
And then you texted me. Do you remember how that all unfolded?
Yeah, I just remember because I follow Ozzy's story, and his mom posted about how what you just said, when they're home, they want a space where they can all spend time together. And then thinking about what you were doing, I thought, well, it's not going to hurt to ask to see if that's something that, that you could do. And being that they were all the way in Oregon,
Yeah.
I thought, how are we going to make this work? The logistics behind, getting this family a couch when we're all the way over here in North Carolina. But, so texted you and you immediately got the ball rolling. So, and seeing the joy that we all probably take for granted every day, which is just a couch, the joy that brought to that family and what it meant and what it was going to provide for them was great.
Well, I would imagine that, if we've done maybe 5 campaigns this year, I think all 5 were ones that you brought, and you said, Bryce, do you think your group can help with this? Bryce, what do you think about this one? And it's all popped up. And I say all that to say, when we talk about your story in just a minute, that's where the weight of all of that, I think, falls on, because it's amazing to me that you stay as engaged as you are, wanting to help these families that are enduring something that no family should have to go through. Jazzy, right? We gave a car to Jazzy. Can you believe? So when you first heard Jazzy's story up in New York, and again, if you've been part of the Warrior chain, you've gotten the emails, and a lot of you contributed to gas cards for Ozzy, but basically you saw that they couldn't get to treatment or taking Ubers to and from treatment. Is that how that started?
Away. Yeah. She posted too that, they were driving a long way to treatment. They didn't have a reliable vehicle, and taking an Uber to treatment was something that just tore me up, because, that's just not something that you should have to worry about. And again, just sent you a simple text, and there it went from there.
Yeah. It was crazy too, because I thought, you and I both talked about, like, we don't know how we're going to do this, but let's see, right? And we kind of put the message out there, and I was imagining, and it was amazing to me too, how many people responded that were in some, like, Wisconsin, and they were like, hey, we do have a vehicle, it does run, and I'm thinking, don't think about how we're going to get the car up to upstate New York. Like, I will figure that, because you never know. That's the thing that I think that's one of the visions I had originally with the Live Like Warriors thing. If I've got this platform and we've got this network, you never know when someone might need to get something from Wisconsin to upstate New York, but we happen to have that exact solution, or somebody that's like, Bryce, I travel from Wisconsin to New York all the time. I can bring this to you.
Right.
And so we don't know. And so I think that just taking that first step of action, I've been amazed to see already just these small specific needs getting filled. And that's something that's become that I've found a lot of purpose and meaning in doing that. But I'm telling you, Jennifer, it started with you bringing me this stuff and saying, here's this need. What do you think? Do you know anyone out there that could fill that need? But the Jazzy story was so crazy, because so many of you gave towards gas cards and things like that. And then to have, Chris Angel say, hey, Bryce, that's unacceptable that they're having to deal with that. Here, just tell me what you need. Like, I'll send you $20,000, just go get them a car. I don't think that's exactly what you and I thought was going to happen when we first started conversing. What is it that enables you to see, first of all, how do you still see all these needs? Are you out there looking for these families' pages? How did you find Jazzy and Ozzy out in Oregon? Because those two had different types of cancer as well. So it's not just that you're only following pages that are enduring the same type of cancer that Jace had.
Right.
How are you, and how many pages do you think that you're engaging with, or?
I don't know how many I follow. I know there's quite a few, which is sad, because you're following pages of sick children. But I think the pediatric cancer community is connected just for that. I mean, it doesn't matter the type of cancer, just the fact that it's pediatric cancer. I've had stories shared with me, and people share, message me and say, hey, can you help this family or follow this family? So I think the reason why I am a part and follow so many children's stories is just for the pediatric cancer family, because, there's only pediatric cancer families can really understand. And it's a connection and it's a bond that we really don't want to be a part of, but we are. And no matter the type, we just rally behind each other and to support.
Is Facebook suggesting these pages for you when you get on there? How do you find them? Are you searching them out?
No,
or what?
I don't search out, because it's painful to, go look for those things. It's just the power of social media, of being able to be connected, and others just referring. And I don't know the analytics behind it, but sometimes, I'll see that someone commented on a certain page and I'm like, okay, I'm not following that person. So let me go and follow this child and, try to just walk along their journey with them. But yeah, I mean, it's the power of social media and the power of the pediatric cancer family.
How many pages do you think that you're following right now? How many stories? 10?
I'm following stories of children who are currently fighting, but I'm still following pages of, sadly, where the child has lost their life. I mean, I don't unfollow just because, the child is gone, because I know the support those families need as well. So, I really don't even know. It's probably in the 50 pages at least, which is sad to think because that's 50 children, that have cancer, and just unimaginable how many are out there still.
Well, I've called you an angel before. I don't know if I've called you that to your face or not, but I've described you as that way anytime the stories have come up, because thinking about, here you are, a mother who lost her child to cancer, and there's no worse grief that any of us could ever even fathom as losing a child. And I am blown away that not only are you following these other stories, but you're engaging with them, right? And so you're dealing with grief and all this stuff that I hope to get into here in a few minutes. But what is it that allows you then to follow these stories and then also engage? Like I'm saying, you're stepping into action where you see a need, and whether it's something that the Warrior Jace Foundation is able to provide, or whether it's something that you're like, Bryce, can your network do something about this? What is it though because most people would have thrown up a wall a long time ago and saying, man, I cannot go there. I can't engage with that family that's dealing with that right now. Because here we are 4 years since Jace passed, and you're still in immense grief. What enables you then to actually step into action for a sectional or for a car or for these different campaigns that you and I have gotten to do together?
I think it's because we were part of that same journey. There's that like I was saying, there's just this bond. So I understand what it's like to be in those situations. I know what the moms are feeling. Even if it's not DIPG, I mean, it's still terrifying as a mom to know that your child is battling, whether it's a terminal cancer or not. It doesn't matter. I'll be honest, initially after losing Jace, it took me time to get to where I am. I'm still heavy in my grief, like you said, but I wasn't wanting initially to go there, really. I didn't want to follow anybody else because it was just too painful. But somebody needs to, and somebody has to. And because you're already kind of alone in a fight anyway. So if I know what someone's experiencing and I know this family and what they're going through, it just didn't feel right for me not to be a part of that. Now, they may not know that I follow their page, but it's just something that if I could read and comment every now and then or reach out to a mom, I just got to a place where that's what I needed.
Yeah. Well, I'm amazed at that though, because I think that I have felt pain from losing the kids that I've gotten to know through like getting to interact with them through Monster Jam and getting, their families coming up and building relationships. And I wasn't their father, I wasn't their parent. I've not been through it as a parent. And it's been incredibly painful for me when these kids pass. Right. And I can't imagine, and it makes me want to withdraw. Like like I said, they're not even my kid. And so when I call you an angel, it's because of, it's just that the ability to, like, you're fighting so much internal stuff that you are going to spend the rest of your life unpacking, I'm sure. And yet you're still reaching out to other families and choosing to engage in their pain, in their story. To me, I just cannot fathom any greater show of love or show of purpose, whatever word someone would put on that. I can't, that's what I can't fathom, is not only just the grief, but also choosing to engage in helping other people. And for that, I'm telling you, I know that you wouldn't never pat yourself on the back. But I just want to tell you, from everybody listening that's ever been involved in one of our Live Like Warriors campaigns, thank you, because you've given a lot of meaning to a lot of people. And I know you didn't even go into it with that, but if anyone's ever given $5 to something that we've done to filling a specific need, like, think about the meaning and purpose that you gave them, that outlet you gave them, because you chose to engage in something that no one would ever expect you to have to go and do that, right? No one would expect you to step out into the world and to benefit other people in the midst of what you've endured. So please, from everyone listening, I know that they'll back me on this. Thank you for staying engaged. It is truly amazing.
Well, let me just say this, that my strength and purpose is because of Jace. I mean, I still, the strength that he displayed when he was sick, that's what I draw from, is how he was and how he lived before he got sick, but during. So all of it is with Jace channeled, through me, and provides me the strength to keep going.
Yeah. Well, I want to introduce everyone to Jace. So this kid was hilarious, right? I did get some videos from you right there after I got to meet you guys, and you would send me videos of him playing with a Mohawk Warrior truck. And what did you say he would call Mohawk Warrior? How would he say it?
Well, he said Mohawk Warrior.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what a remarkable kid. How would you describe Jace?
Oh my
Personality
gosh.
wise.
I think about that when because I know people ask me that, or are going to ask me that. He is just loving. He is an old soul. I've always said that. I think we said that not long after he was born. There was just something different. He is funny. He's energetic. He's daring but cautious. He's 100 miles an hour, and just loved bigger than I ever knew existed. I mean, he just, and I don't know, by no means do I think that he knew his time here was limited, but he packed so much love and experiences in 4 years before he got sick that I'm thankful for, that we were able to take him everywhere we went, and he just soaked in his environment, and just really loved big, and had a funny sense of humor, and you always knew where you stood with him. And
what do you mean?
Well, he would tell you if you were talking too much, or if you did something that he thought was silly. He was honest, but he never wanted to hurt your feelings. But you would kind of be like, oh, he's a 4-year-old and he just zinged me, So, but if you were able to meet him and be around him, then I truly feel like people walked away different, because there was just something different about Jace.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember getting just hearing him interact with the trucks. Like I said, when you would send me a video of that, and I think the thing that was so hard, I remember exactly where I was when I found out that he had passed. And again, like I said, I never got to meet him in person. Right. Which is hard for me to believe, because I feel like I know
felt
him.
so close.
Yeah,
right?
and getting to know you and Eric all this time, and just the friendship that Mackenzie and I have made with you and Eric over the years, it's hard to believe that I never got to meet Jace. And we were trying to get you guys out to a Monster Jam event, and it got so bad so quickly that we missed that opportunity. And like I said, that's one of my biggest regrets, that never got to happen. But talk to us through that. I want people to understand Jace's story. When did you find out? When did you assume or think to yourself, hey, something's wrong here?
So I have described DIPG and the symptoms as just like a light switch. One day he was perfectly healthy, everything was fine, and then literally the next day something was wrong. So it was October 22nd of 2017. We were outside, which is where, if Jace could live anywhere, he would choose to live outside. He was an outdoorsy, that's where he wanted to be. So we were shockingly outside, and he was walking up the driveway, and Eric and I were at the top of the driveway, and he was walking towards us, and he was walking as if he had had a stroke. mild stroke, I guess. He was kind of dragging his left leg a little bit, and his left arm was a little drawn towards his body, but it kind of came and went. So you start thinking, okay, well, I probably didn't just see that. But then when we came inside, he had trouble standing at different times. So the next day, Eric was getting him ready to take him up to my parents' house, and he didn't have the ability to help dress him. Mm-hmm. And so Eric called me and, told me something is wrong. So, we, like what any parent would do, you immediately call your pediatrician, and we went. And within an hour, our lives completely changed. Fortunately, we had a very, our pediatrician is amazing, because I think with the mild symptoms, because he wasn't displaying, by the time we got to the doctor on Monday, he wasn't displaying it all the time, but we had a pediatrician that wanted to be cautious and sent us for testing, where I think what happens sometimes with DIPG is it's dismissed as, they're just clumsy, or, maybe they have a virus, and that wasn't the case with our doctor, which we are so thankful for, because it was immediate that his symptoms were progressing. So on Monday, October 23rd, 2017, we went to the ER and had a CAT scan, and 10 minutes later, we were told he had a tumor near his brainstem. But we still didn't, know exactly what it was, because nobody told us for quite a while.
That it was DIPG, or that, okay. So you
that
knew
it
there was
DIPG,
a tumor.
or that it was cancer.
Really?
We were transported to a larger hospital in Charlotte, and, we're just thinking, okay, we're going to go have this thing removed, and we're going to be home in a couple of days, is what we were thinking. But we knew something was wrong when a pediatric oncologist came in and introduced themselves, and that's the first time that we knew something was more serious than just a simple tumor that we thought we'd be able to remove.
Yeah. Oh. So when you said October 22nd was when he was walking up the driveway.
Right. You
said October 23rd. So when did your pediatrician do tests? You said something about an hour. Within an hour, you found that out. Was it on the 22nd or 23rd?
No, I'm sorry. The 22nd is when we first saw the first symptom.
Okay.
The 23rd is when we took him to the pediatrician. It was on a Monday.
Okay.
And
right off the bat, they did a CAT scan.
Well, he did some like neurological type tests to see if he could, like finger to nose, all that type of stuff. And he just knew that it was something that needed to be looked into. And he sent us to the emergency room.
Gotcha.
And so within, from the time we went to the pediatrician, and his CAT scan was about an hour. Yeah. And within that time is, everything turned upside down for us.
Yeah. Which is remarkable that it was only an hour. I mean, I've heard stories where it, it takes a long time. Like you said, either it's dismissed, or even just, my own niece, I don't know exactly the amount of time that she was in the hospital. I remember by the time she got to the ER, I don't know if they did any tests, but they then quickly sent her and my sister-in-law to Brenner's in Winston-Salem. So she had that transport time and the time that was in the ER. And then Mackenzie and I were on a date that night, and they had said they were going to Brenner's, and all of a sudden we knew, like, well, something's going on. So we had time to even get to the hospital. So I'd have to ask my sister-in-law the timing of that, but it had to be 4 or 5 hours, and I'd say that's probably being kind of minimal. It might have been more than that before they finally walked in that room. But it's the story that I always try to help people understand, is that moment. And I don't even really believe that Mackenzie and I happened to be in the room when this happened, but I'll never forget that when the doctor came in and did say it's cancer, and watching my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law fall apart. That was something. And then we all were falling apart, right? Because again, it's like, you don't know how serious it is. Right. It's the dreaded word, right, of cancer. And it's something that no family, no parent should ever have to endure. Right. What was that moment for you? You said you thought, were you very optimistic at first, saying, oh, well, let's go. Did you go into like project mode? Like, okay, well, if it's a tumor, let's go win surgery. Or did you fall apart? How was that? What was that moment like when the doctor came in and told you?
So it's like two different situations for us. The first time was when the emergency room doctor came in and said, yep, he's got a tumor near his brainstem. I did fall apart. But then I quickly remembered that Jace is 4 years old, sitting in a hospital bed and terrified, and he's watching everything that we're doing. And so he would react or respond based on, what I was doing. So trying to fall apart, but without doing it where everybody could see it. That's what was happening. And then I immediately just thought, okay, tumor, you're not saying cancer. So I'm holding on to every word that's being said. So she didn't come back and tell me that he had cancer. She came back and said he had a tumor. So tumors can be removed. Is kind of what I was thinking. So by the time we got transferred to Levine's Children's in Charlotte, and when the pediatric oncologist came in, I knew it was more serious, but still DIPG was never brought up. So I remember asking the doctor, because they were scheduling Jace for an MRI, and that wouldn't have been till the next day. By the time we got transported and everything, it was late in the evening. But when he just kept saying cancer, and then I said, okay, well, but it could be benign. Like, it could be, right? Give me some hope here, and I could just tell on his face. He said, yeah, I guess it could be, but, I knew deep down, I was just holding on to just this hope that it was something that we were going to be able to take care of quickly, and he was going to get back to his normal self. But I know that if I could read the faces of the doctors and the nurses, that Jace was doing the same to me. And it was such a battle, because all I wanted to do was fall to the ground, and but you couldn't. And once we found out that it was DIPG, then the fight was on for us.
And you had no idea what DIPG was before that, right?
Absolutely not.
I would imagine that most people listening to this have never heard of DIPG.
Right.
And what exactly is that? You talk about a tumor on the brainstem, but what is DIPG, if you want to
So it's
help us
diffuse
understand?
intrinsic pontine glioma. So the thing about DIPG, which makes it so difficult, is it wraps itself into the brainstem. So that's why you don't have the opportunity to have the tumor removed, because the brainstem is, your life system. It provides the ability to breathe and to eat and all that. So there is no opportunity to take DIPG out. So that's what makes it so difficult, makes it so aggressive, because it grows within the brainstem. Yeah.
And that's what was causing his issues walking that first day, is because they're starting to influence his functions.
Yeah, and it was intermittent, because it was just starting. I mean, his was a very quick growing tumor, but that's what it does. Most kids, when they start presenting symptoms, it's in a way of they're falling, or they're having trouble walking, or something with an eye. I'd never heard of DIPG. And when we were told what it was, I told the doctor, don't even tell me what it stands for. I don't want to know, because it didn't matter. Right. I mean, to me, once you tell me it's cancer, okay, let's fight now. I'm not going to Google it. I'm not going to look it up. So I didn't. I never knew what it stood for until, probably close to when he left. Yeah. What it stood for, because it didn't matter. What mattered was us trying to fight it.
Yeah. What about the how long did it take them to identify it as DIPG? Was it that same day that you were at Levine's?
I think that Monday, the evening when the oncologist came in, I think he knew. Okay. I believe he knew. I just don't think that he maybe necessarily wanted to tell us right then. He wanted to wait till the MRI. I think maybe there was part of him that was hopeful that the MRI would show something different. Yeah. But once he had the MRI, then it was the next morning that they confirmed that. And I remember every single detail about that morning. with the sounds, the feel of the hospital, the long walk to where they took us to. They took us to a conference room to tell us, Eric and me. But I can still remember every single thing about that moment.
And it's very rare too, right?
Yep.
Form of cancer.
Well, so they say it's rare,
Okay.
but then, and it's probably just because we're in the community now of DIPG, but I feel like I hear about it every day.
Yeah.
A new diagnosis every day. 250 to 300 kids a year.
Wow.
And where I guess most people would say that was rare, but when you're in it and then you start learning about other families and seeing the other children that are fighting this, it's just hard for me to say that it is rare.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm wondering, if the hospitals, I mean, how many oncologists are familiar with it? I mean, I've been, I think, I don't know if maybe I'm misremembering this, but I feel like there was a conversation you and I had where some hospital systems may not even really be familiar at all with DIPG. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think because Charlotte's a big market,
Yeah.
I think we just were fortunate to have a doctor that had seen DIPG before. From what I've seen with other stories, I think that's why sometimes it doesn't get diagnosed initially, because doctors aren't familiar with it. So many aren't familiar with it and don't know what it looks like when they're looking at it on a CT scan or an MRI. To say we're fortunate, I hate saying that term in the sense of talking about cancer, but I am thankful that our doctor knew what it was, recognized what it was, and we were able to start fighting immediately. The thing about DIPG and fighting it, though, there aren't not every hospital has the resource to fight DIPG.
Yeah. And so your first, what did the hospital system, because at that point when you're broken, right, and you're okay, let's get into the fight then. Let's take care of this. You look for the hospital system to guide you on where to go and what to do. But you guys started making calls, right, to who can help us with this? Because was it Levine's that was going to then treat it? But I also know, I think that you called St. Jude. I think you called,
right.
You guys tried to see your options. How much of that was you having to kind of to figure it out for yourself versus the hospital saying, hey, you need to do this, this, and this?
Most all of it was, fell on the shoulders of Eric and me. Now, immediately when they told us, I'm not going to say they didn't support, but it was a deep, painful diagnosis. And so they don't do that often. So I think that it was just kind of this uncomfortable, not quite sure what to do. I remember once I finally gathered myself, I just said, okay, so what do we got to do to fight this? Like, we're not the type to give up. You were given several options. It was, you could take him home and make memories, continue making memories, and you may have a few months. You can do radiation, and that might extend his life a little bit. And then, the term clinical trial was just kind of floated around there. And that was never a question on Eric and me. We just knew that that's what we were going to have to do. If that was going to give Jace a chance to beat it. And so we started, they told us of a couple of trials, Washington, D.C. and Atlanta. But then it was kind of left up to us, what we decided. And we knew that time was not on our side. So we did start making phone calls, and I think I reached out. I called the DIPG clinical trial in Washington, D.C. myself and spoke to someone there. And what I was being told locally was, well, we have to submit everything. They have to read over it, look at his scans, and decide if he's going to be accepted into the trial. Well, that also means that takes time. We don't have time. I'm not going to sit back and sit still. So, you have to kind of be your own advocate and play aggressive. And that's what we did. And we actually got ourselves accepted into the trial before they even received Jace's, scans and things from the hospital. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So how did that process of getting him accepted? And where did he get accepted into?
He got accepted into Children's National in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And that really was just I spoke to one of the nurses that was a part of the program then, and just told her what we were told in Charlotte. Not even an interview, but just some questions about what Jace was experiencing, his symptoms, and what we were told about the doctor here, or doctor in Charlotte. And it wasn't long before she called back and said that it was a go. So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
Be your own advocate. I've heard that from so many families. And again, it's not that we're trying to, it wouldn't be an indictment against the hospital system and things like that. But for, when it's the worst day of your life and you're hoping that someone can give you the answers and the answers don't come, I can't imagine a more lonely feeling. And that's not something that should be the reality, but it is. Being your own advocate when it comes to your health and trying to take matters into your own hands is not something anyone deserves to have to go through, but it is required. The more people I meet, the more people that say the exact same thing is you've got to be your own advocate and push it through.
Yeah.
So when you, and you even said, and that's what some people might ask me, and I've been to St. Jude. I like St. Jude, right? I think the work they do is great. But I also think that there's a lot of organizations out there that I support, and that I think do amazing work.
Right.
But St. Jude, you called them and they did not accept his case. Is that right?
That's correct.
Did they not do any DIPG, or how did that unfold?
From what I can recall, because my mother was a part of that, that there was not a DIPG trial, and I think that is one of the big things that I wish people would understand. There are organizations like St. Jude. Obviously, they're able to stay on the TV and stay in front of people, but there are so many hospitals and researchers and scientists that aren't able to do that, but they're still doing the same type of work. And, it's just supporting all the other trials and hospitals that are trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, St. Jude is what you hear. So you start just calling anybody that you think that you've heard in the past, or anybody you think that can help. But then we quickly realized how specific these trials are and how limited. Keep in mind, this is 2017, so there were less clinical trials available then. So your resources were very limited.
When did you find out the survival rate percentage of DIPG?
I didn't specifically find out right in the beginning, but when the doctor told me that our options were to take him home and make memories, and that he may live 5 months, then, I think is when I realized that it was very, very bad. And, but I didn't know exactly that there was a no survival rate, that it was completely terminal. Even if somebody would have told me he is going to pass, I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
But I think that's what most parents would. I mean, somebody has to be the first to beat it, right? I mean, that's where we are with some of these cancers that exist. Somebody beat it at some point. And we thought Blake, that's my oldest son. I'm sorry. We thought Jace, we believed that Jace was going to pave the way. He was going to be the pioneer of DIPG. And it was going to be, when DIPG was talked about, that people would automatically think about Jace because he beat it. Mm-hmm. That was our belief.
Has there not been, you're saying there's not been anyone that has survived DIPG after diagnosis? Do you know? Is it 0% survival?
Well, it's a very small percent survival rate. Now, your survival rate might provide you 2 years. It may be, in 2017, it was like it was about 9 months is what you were expected. So you have some children that respond to different treatments, so they may live a little bit longer than Jace did. Some don't live much past diagnosis. It's just such an aggressive cancer that these doctors don't have time to study them and treat it, because it's you just go on immediately into the mode of how can I get it to just slow down, and there's nothing right now that exists to even make it really slow down. I'm sure there's children out there that maybe 3-4 years into it. I don't know. But I know the stories that I follow.
Yeah. And
so far I have not seen one survive.
I think the gut-wrenching part of DIPG that I've learned about since Jace, and he is the reason I know what DIPG is now. and that I've gotten to meet some of these families that are going through it. But the thing that's so gut wrenching is how quickly it progresses. And to your point, maybe I hadn't realized that before, is just if it's wrapped around the brainstem and you can't get the tumor removed because you can't mess with the brainstem.
Right.
Obviously, you're limited to your point, what you're saying, which is trying to contain it or lessen it, or try to control the growth, or however we'd probably put that. But when Jace was diagnosed, he was how old?
He was 4.
4. A 4-year-old just knows, obviously he doesn't know that a 4-year-old has food poisoning. He just knows his tummy aches, right? He doesn't know he has cancer or what cancer probably even is at 4. He just knows he's starting to feel bad or he's starting to feel differently. At what point do you think that Jace started realizing that that it was bad? Instead of just feeling yucky, when do you think that he started to catch on, like, this isn't good? Or what is it? I don't even know what a 4-year-old, 4.5-year-old then at that point is thinking of he can't process any of that.
No, he just knows that all of a sudden he's going to the doctor a lot, and he's, hospital stays, and, he's spending more time in a hospital gown than he is in his pajamas. We never told him what was happening. We told him that there was something in his head that we were getting him help with. But even if it happened all over again today, I would do it the same way. I don't think that even if you try to describe it in the best way, how are you going to get a 4-year-old to understand that they're possibly dying? Because they don't even know what that means.
Right. Yeah.
They don't know, if they lost a goldfish, okay, they're going to cry for an hour, but they can't grasp that deep concept of death. And so we just didn't tell him. Now, I remember after radiation is what helped him walk again, because within a week, he lost his ability to walk. But probably when we were about 6 months in, when he started losing his ability to walk again, he asked me, when he was going to start feeling better and when he was going to be able to walk again. But that doesn't mean that he knew that he wasn't going to live. I think it was just 5-year-old. By then he was 5. What are 5-year-old kids supposed to be doing? They're supposed to be running around and playing, and he was supposed to be playing baseball. So his brain was fine, his understanding and his, the brain doesn't get disturbed by DIPG. So they're still aging, they're still thinking, they still have thoughts, and they know their body isn't responding. But trying to get a 5-year-old to understand that that's just not going to happen right now, it was very, very, I remember where I was. It was very painful when he asked me that, because I knew that it probably wasn't going to happen again. But you have to, you can't show that, because I didn't want to scare him. I didn't want to worry him. He was already worried. The things that, and I'm sure other pediatric cancer patients go through, but what DIPG, these children go through, it's a lot, and I can't imagine his terror that he felt, his fear. Once he realized that, okay, my body's not working like it used to, but my brain is fine. That was hard.
Was there anything that that you saw him gravitate towards in the hospital that got him through the hard times? Was he a, playing on an iPad kind of kid? Was he a Lego building kid? What did he like to do?
Well, Jace liked to be running. Jace liked to be on his bicycle, on his John Deere tractor. This was this took a lot away from the kid that Jace was. He was not a sit and be still. So that was difficult. You're going one day from teaching him how to swing a bat to the next day of your legs aren't working right. So let's build a Lego car. I mean, we didn't want to do that either. But yeah, he quickly had to learn we had to entertain while he was in the hospital. The hospitals were great, whether it was Charlotte or DC, because they have therapy dogs and they have so many programs because they know these kids are just laying in a hospital bed and can't get out and do what they want to do. So they find ways to entertain them. And it was, both experiences for that and what they did for these kids was amazing. Now, when he was home and had lost his ability to walk, he obviously, we call him Warrior Jace, but he's going to find a way. He was going to find a way ever before he was sick. So I remember when he was learning how to walk, we have stairs in our house, and he gravitated towards the stairs, right? What a lot of kids do. So we built this system to where it would block the stairs off, and you had to slide it to move it out of the way. He figured out how to slide it out of the way. So he's always had that, kind of, you can try, but you're not going to stop me. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
And that's probably where his little fight motto came in of can't stop me. But when he lost his ability to walk, he could crawl like nobody's business. And obviously crawling, you have to use your legs. He didn't use his legs.
Huh.
I mean, he would, and it's sad to say, but I mean, he found a way to move about the house and to go the different places that he wanted. But it was still, as a mom, that was hard to watch, but that's the determination of Jace.
And that's what I think people need to understand about DIPG on why it's just so hard to not only fathom but watch a child is correct me if I'm wrong, it's essentially shutting down the body's functions.
Correct.
As it progresses.
Right.
Is it because the tumor is growing and what is it doing? Putting pressure on the brainstem?
Right. It's compressing against the brainstem. So your brainstem provides you the ability to breathe and to talk, to eat, to swallow, all your important functions that you need to live. It just slowly takes those away. And that's what ends up, taking the child, is because it's so much pressure on the brainstem that it just shuts down, the ability for the heart to beat.
Mm-hmm. Well, in his pictures, it's amazing. We got a picture of him right here, which is awesome. Yeah. And he loved green,
green.
Right? He
always green was his favorite color from, the time he knew what colors were.
Yeah. He loved green, huh?
Green.
And he looks very handsome in a green shirt and his green hair. But he's got the coolest smile. And like anytime I saw his pictures and even towards the end, because you seem to be, I've described families that some people kind of build up walls. Some people don't build up walls. They kind of like engage in the community. They are extremely open about the day-to-day stuff that they're going through. I kind of watched my family go through it more so of putting up walls, and that's just that was the style. I kind of felt like I saw both from you. I felt like you were pretty open and engaging with people. Where getting to know you now, I know that you were also putting up a lot of walls and having to kind of defend and maintain the privacy that your family wanted as you went through it, while still engaging people and keeping everyone updated and stuff that, again, I think you're kind of one. I think people are either built one way or the other to do that stuff, and I don't think there's a manual for it. There's not a right way to do that. I think everyone's just going to have different tendencies with that, but I was very surprised at, in a right way, because it helped to educate me, but I knew it was harder on you to do it that way. You still communicated quite a bit, whether it was Facebook, of what Jace was going through. But even those pictures that I saw you post, even towards the very end, that kid was always grinning. Even if it wasn't the same as this picture right here, and you could tell the guy was was he still happy somehow towards the end, or was he just forcing that? I mean, what was Jace like in those last couple of months? Because I still saw a lot of smiles when there probably wasn't as much to smile about for him.
Yeah. I think anytime I usually share a picture of him. I always say, he was so sick, but he was still smiling. I don't know. When you're talking about the walls, I was that way. I mean, it was like I had a wall up in certain areas, but I wanted people to understand that this was really happening. This is the reality. This cancer does exist. And his story spread so quickly. I mean, we had such a huge following while he was sick. But I was cautious too, like you were saying, about protecting Jace and what I knew he was when he was healthy, and the pain of what he looked like when he was really sick. That is hard for people to see. And people on social media had the chance to just scroll past it. And I would say, listen, we can't do that. This is really happening. A few days before Jace left us, he was still singing with me. But that was just who he is. I mean, that's who he is. I mean, that's why we call him the warrior. And he just, even until the night before, I mean, he was thumbs up, and that's just who he was.
And what day did he actually pass on? What was his?
Oh my gosh, October 5th.
October 5th.
2018. So 347 days after diagnosis. But like I said, I mean, he always smiled. I mean, these pictures that I share of him, even when he was, or before he was diagnosed, he was just happy. But he never let what was happening to him stop him from, smiling at his Gigi, or his older brother Bake, as he used to call him. That's just, I think he for some reason would throw his little thumbs up, because that's what he did a lot. And he'd always just say, "Can't stop me." And he lived that until he left on October 5th.
What a kid. Mm-hmm. All right. We're going to take a quick break, because we're going to come back and we're going to talk about how a family can get involved, and people, like a listener that wants to understand what it really looks like to help a family going through cancer, and all those unknowns like we talked about before, because that's not an easy question to ask. But I want to ask you that. I want to say, what was beneficial for you when Jace was diagnosed, when you were in the middle for those 347 days? The support you needed then looked different than the 3 months afterwards, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The different, but you still, you need support now, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you that question, because I know a lot of people, if they're still listening to this, it's because they want to understand how to help, the right ways to help, and the stuff to not do, right? And I think that's we could do a whole nother podcast on what not to say, the stuff that is not helpful, that's actually hurtful, even though I don't think anyone's ill-intentioned. But I want to come back and talk a little bit about that if you're up for it.
I'm up for it.
All right. Be right back, guys. Have you joined our Warrior Chain yet? Imagine being part of a 5,000-person email chain army that makes coordinated efforts to fill specific needs that we find, where every dollar given goes straight to that need instead of some CEO's salary. A $2,500 wheelchair for a family that can't afford it? That's 250 warriors giving $10 each, and we fill that need within the hour. That's the power of the Warrior Chain, and we want you on the battlefield with us. LiveLikeWarriors.com. Now, let's get back to the episode. Okay, so I'm excited about this, because I want to give the listeners something to take away. If they're going to meet Jace through this, right? They're going to understand DIPG a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And then thirdly, I want to empower, like we've said, the listener to understand how to help a family. And this is really difficult, because emotionally people need different things, and how to engage a parent who just got, where their kid just got diagnosed, or maybe even it doesn't even have to necessarily even be pediatric cancer. It could be trauma.
Right.
But, what were some of the most helpful things that you guys experienced during those 347 days while going through treatment? What was actually beneficial the most?
I think the most beneficial thing for us was that someone started meals for us. And I remember we had a red cooler on our front porch and a blue cooler on our front porch, which indicated hot and cold. Huh. So that was one thing I didn't have to worry about, was the fact that our community rallied behind us and would provide meals. And that was just one less thing I had to worry about, because as the mom, right, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to, feed our kids, feed our families, cook meals. And I wasn't able to do that. I didn't have the time to do that. I didn't want to be taken away from Jace to go cook something for dinner. So that was a really big help for us. I know there were a couple of times when we were out of town, we would come back and our pantry would be full. Because I didn't have time to go grocery shopping. That was before, Food Lion to Go, or these, these apps that exist for you to, grocery shop from your living. That didn't exist. So we have to keep in perspective that this was 2017. So, the groceries were a huge deal, especially with a teenager in the house.
Yeah.
And then the meals, things that you do every single day, and that you try, that you have to do to provide for your family. If you can take one of those stresses off of the family, it makes a huge impact. I mean, the person doing that may never know what it actually does for a family, but I can tell you the meals were probably the greatest thing ever for us.
Did you ever get, not frustrated, but did you ever, when would it not be helpful in terms of did you get a lot of phone calls and a lot of texts and things like that wanting to engage, or did you get a lot of questions? I mean, what was it that did you ever find yourself getting frustrated by the way anyone went about that?
Well, sometimes it would be a little overwhelming, because whether it was a text or a Facebook message, what can we do? What can we do? I didn't have time to process, because I didn't know what I needed. I just needed somebody to do, but I didn't know what that was and how to tell you that. But fortunately, I kind of had a circle around me with my family and my friend at the time, there were things that I had to delegate, and was like, I can't make those decisions. Like, I need you to organize that. I need you to, be that liaison. So overwhelmed, I would probably say, is what I felt sometimes. But I appreciated the fact that people were reaching out.
Yeah. You said something really important to me at some point. I bet you it's been a year or two. It was during one of these campaigns, because we were, I think it was something about lawn care for a family, and we were trying to work it out. But you said the thing I'm not going to do is have this family have to make a decision on this, right? Is putting something else on their plate. I had never really thought about it that way, right? I never thought about, well, I don't want, I need to ask them what color. I remember with the sectional with Ozzy, I remember going, well, gosh, do we just get them anything, or can we ask them like what color, or do they want it leather, or do they want it cloth? And obviously with that, I think we did end up asking them, like, what is your preference? But we didn't have them but that was through your guidance, saying, don't get them involved involve them as little as you have to, or as little as you can. So we didn't involve them in delivery. We just said, do you have an idea on what type? And then is there a specific day? Because we're going to cover everything else. But I learned that from you. What was your experience? When did you realize you just couldn't make a decision on setting up Meal Train, right? You didn't set that up, did you?
Mm-mm.
Someone else set that up because you didn't have the capacity to make another decision, you told me.
Yeah. So, what I've tried to tell people is, take less decisions for the parents. We already are in this new world, of trying to figure things out, making decisions of what's best for the family, for us, for our child. And so it's kind of like the less is more. So, just take it and run with it. If, you have this interest in what you want to do for a family, then you just need to kind of either find somebody within their circle that can help facilitate that. But I know pretty early on that I couldn't take on many more decisions. I just wanted to focus on, fighting DIPG and making sure Jace was, comfortable. So all the daily things, it was just, we had people around us that could kind of help facilitate those things. We were out of town one time and came back, and our yard had been mowed and all the shrubs had been pruned. Now, that's something that my husband and I hadn't thought of, that, oh my gosh, this is one of the things that's been put on the back burner. When we got home and saw that it had been done, we were just like, oh my gosh, that's one less thing. Thank you so much. And that was a friend of mine who lives halfway across the country that did that, and organized that. So it's like just kind of doing, and if there's somebody connected with the family that you could run an idea past them, instead of adding to, just continuing to add to the daily decisions on parents, less decision making for them is I think is important.
Yeah. What advice about someone that maybe has an inkling on something to do? Most people, I think most of us, because we mean well, we may hesitate because we're like, I don't know if they would need this or want this. I don't want to bother them. Any advice for those people that want to get involved, maybe have an idea? How should they contact the family, as silly as that sounds? Or does a family need that kind of space? Like you said before, how quickly would it get overwhelming for you?
Well, once I recognized for me that it was getting overwhelming, I just simply handed it off to a friend or my mom or somebody that was close to me, that they could ask me when it was right, when the time was right, to say, hey, this person wants to do this. What do you think about, what do you think about this idea? Or what do you because if you have someone that is around you, they know when the right time to bring something up is, and they know when to ask. But I completely encourage people, reach out. I mean, you may not hear back from that parent or, grandparent at that time, but at least they know that someone's out there that's interested in helping. And at that moment may not be the right time, but they may, pass it off to someone else that can help facilitate whatever the need is, what somebody is wanting to do.
And so as a almost a specific example, you talk about lawn care. So instead of someone reaching out saying, hey, Jennifer, we'd like to really cover your lawn care next week, right? Then that's so generous.
Right. But I'm going to tell you, no, don't worry about that.
Yes, exactly. So you're going to put it off and say, nope, no, don't. Oh, yeah. So instead of that, would it be better to say, because you came back, the lawn was done, where you didn't have a chance to even say yes or no, and it was so, you and Eric both, it blew you away. But would it be better for that person to say, hey, we've got this lawn care company, they're going to come by next Tuesday. Is that okay? Should they say, hey, I've got all the dots connected, just want to let you aware of it? Or was it better that you just came home and that was already done?
Well, for us specifically, just on our story and our journey at the time, I just needed it done. Don't ask me. But I'm sure there are people out there that would be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Yes, Tuesday will be fine. But if someone says to me, can I provide this to you? I have this all set up. I don't want somebody, I feel bad for asking for help. I desperately needed it, but I knew that people were busy. I knew that, nothing's cheap. And so I didn't want someone else to have to go out of their way for me. So if you gave me the opportunity to tell you no and not to worry about it, more than likely I was going to tell you, thank you, but there's no need in that. When inside I'm like, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that would really help.
That would really help. And so I think finally people around me started seeing that, okay, she just wants us to kind of do and take less decisions off of her, because, not only are we trying to figure out what the best thing to do is for our child if they're suffering cancer or, like you said, some sort of traumatic situation, we're also trying to figure out how to still be a mom and dad to the siblings. We're still working full time. There's just so much that goes on in that world, that even though to someone on the outside asking me, can I bring you groceries, might seem simple, but it might be just that one thing that's like, oh my gosh, with everything else going on, I can't handle that, making that decision, because I don't know when the best time is. I don't know when, the right time of day is, or what day is the best. Just kind of do it. And, or like me recognizing that I needed somebody else to help be that liaison with people.
How would you give advice to someone that is compelled to do something, right? Should they, and this is kind of hard to actually ask this question because you think to yourself, there should be some, common sense to a little bit of this as well, where there's some things that you probably should ask the family versus just going and doing. But any advice to following that compulsion versus running it by a family? Is there certain categories that you would say, okay, if it was this, run that by the family versus, we didn't even know the bushes need to be trimmed, and there's no way I was going to say, oh yeah, that'd be great next Tuesday. So I think that's a great example of something that people just aren't going to always think about is the lawn care cupboard, versus do they show up with just a bunch of bags of groceries versus giving a gift card to Food Lion or, to Walmart to go get groceries? Any advice to following compulsion versus checking with the family first?
Yeah, I think, checking with the family is fine. If there's no response, and I've been many times not received a response, but, I just kind of monitor and see what it is that, because people will eventually kind of start talking about some things that they may need here and there. But lawn care, great example. Yeah, you can just show up and do it. Don't just send somebody to my house to clean my house.
Oh, yeah.
So, because, if we're
one.
not there, I don't want some stranger coming in my house. Plus, it's our home.
Right.
So there are some things that, I would say, you need to run past. As far as the groceries, it's really just kind of depending on what the family, I don't know. I mean, where they are. And like for me, living out where we do, when people would just drop off groceries, I liked that. Because with a gift card, I still have to go.
Yep.
I still have to, or hand it off to somebody, and I still have to make a list.
Yeah, there's a decision you had to make.
More decisions.
Like you were saying, something else on your plate.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but gift cards to some are exactly what they need. And especially nowadays that you have, the opportunity to shop from an app or your computer, that just didn't exist for us. So, the groceries are big, the food, gas cards, because we have to travel, not just us. I mean, all these DIPG families and pediatric cancer families that I follow, the hospital isn't just next door. So, and that can add up quickly. I mean, I remember us 5 days a week driving, 45 miles to get to the hospital. That adds up, and taking one less stress off of the family is huge. And you may not see the benefit of it, but I remember so many times it was like, oh my gosh, we have to get gas again. And then remembering we had a gift card. So that was big.
What about how often were you eating in the hospital? Because your stays on average would be how long? Was there?
Well, so there really wasn't anything initially for us to stay in the hospital for. The first time we were there for a few days.
Okay.
But we were, Jace had his request of what he wanted to eat. So there was nothing in the hospital that was what he wanted. I mean, it was specific. We had a lot of food gift cards donated to us. And we would use those whether we were in Charlotte for treatment or Washington, D.C. One thing that we did benefit from, we didn't have it where we live now. Washington was a little more advanced than where we are. They had food delivery services there. And so once we were living in Arlington and we weren't able to go out because Jace wasn't able to, being able to use those resources of the food delivery services.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I remember thinking, I don't want to go back to, Stanley County because we have to go to the grocery store.
Yeah. One of the things that we had experienced when our daughter was in the NICU for 10 days when she was born were the DoorDash gift cards, right? Just like what you're saying, or Uber Eats. I think that's a huge opportunity. And 2018, I don't even think that stuff was much going on. So, but I think that's a great idea for people to utilize and to use, right? I mean, that would be incredibly beneficial to eat on the go and not just be a Subway gift card where you have to go to Subway, right?
Limited.
You can use DoorDash and any food in the area that they're feeling and that Jace requires in that moment, you can
very
find.
Very specific. Right. And, when you're gone from home a lot, after so long, the last thing you want is another fast food meal.
Yeah.
So having that ability to order from a place that you can get vegetables and something that's like a home cooked meal to make you feel like you're back at home just for a few minutes, a little bit of normalcy. That was one thing that we really enjoyed up in Arlington, Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
But it's so, and like I was saying earlier, keeping in perspective that this was 2017, 2018, and seeing how far we've come since then, the technology has been so good for pediatric cancer families because they are able to connect in different ways and get the help they need.
So in terms of supporting people, follow your gut and be probably more, I say aggressive. That's not the right word, but take it off their plate, right? Don't be so dependent upon the parent and the family to answer your question. Follow your gut, what you're feeling compelled to go do, and try to limit the families having to think through it. Just do it. When in doubt, probably.
I say be intentional, right? So don't be so broad and tell me what I can do to help. That's way too broad. Really take time to think about, what could I do? What is something that I could do to help make tomorrow easier for them? Instead of it being this, well, just let me know how I can help, or what do you need? Because if you ask me what I needed in 2017, I need a whole lot.
Yeah.
I need my kid to survive. I need, so you're probably not going to get the response. If you had asked me, what do you need? I'm not going to think to say, I need hot meals 3 days a week.
Yeah. Was there anything anyone did or gave you that upset you, where you were like, oh, like you said, I think that's a great example. I don't know if someone did have someone clean your house while you were gone or something, but was there anything that you were like, yeah, that's the wrong thing to do, I guess? But I guess the point I'm trying to make is, it's not like you ever got upset that someone, we had 2 meals given tonight when I should have had 1, right? No. And that's why I say follow your gut on this stuff. And if you're feeling compelled to do something, chances are you're supposed to be doing it.
Exactly.
And we thank you guys for doing that, right?
Yeah.
But here's the freedom that you should be feeling on getting it done and, going and helping that family. And kudos to you, right? That you're listening to your gut and just follow it, right?
Absolutely.
Just don't do a house cleaner.
Yeah, that might be a little too
invasive.
A little too, you showing back now, but in that same sense, maybe go a little bit further and try to find somebody, because the way that actually happened to us, we came back and our house was clean. I freaked out just a little bit because I thought who was in our house, but someone had reached out to someone that they know in our community that we ended up knowing that cleans houses. So it was fine. But we didn't have anything that anybody provided us or gave us that upset us.
Maybe that's a great way to put it. Maybe I say the rule of thumb would be if it, that the boundaries are inside your home, right? When you think about the walls of your home, if there's something, meals, and even though a kitchen table, right, being dinner, so that's inside the home, but you can still have that in those red and blue coolers out on the front porch, but keeping the sanctity of your house and your family time precious, that's where things need to get cleared. If there's something inside the home, probably
that's the boundary is, because that's private and personal.
Exactly.
So that's where we felt. Let us actually make that decision.
Yes, involve the family if it breaks that barrier, right, that boundary. Other than that, follow your gut and limit the decisions that a family has to make because they're making a lot of decisions that are way more important than are the shrubs getting trimmed. So, and thank you guys for being involved in that. Yeah. Let's switch gears because the flip side of all of this is even our family. It was amazing the things that would get said, right? Because a lot of us, we want to encourage and none of us really understand what to say. And I'm guilty of this still, right? What advice would you give people on what actually was beneficial for you to hear versus the things that were not beneficial? Sometimes even hurtful, even though they certainly weren't trying to hurt. But how can people be more effective in the way that they're communicating? Whether it was when you actually got your diagnosis or whether it was during treatment. But how can people bless or encourage? What's the right way to do that?
So I think we can look at it in the time we were sick, when Jace was sick, and then since. Okay, so some of the when he was sick, a lot of the stuff that we were encouraged. I mean, we received a lot of texts, comments, things in the mail, like that really kept us going. Okay, so but then after losing Jace, I think people need to understand that you can't fix it. Okay, so you can't fix my grief in one comment. You can't fix my loss. And it's okay if I'm not okay. If I post something vulnerable about how I'm feeling, I don't really want the critical thought of some. I have been told that, you just need to be thankful that you have another kid. That's not very helpful.
Yeah.
I was told that Jace was just mine to borrow. He was never mine to begin with. Probably not something that is, good for a grieving mom to hear. Like you said, I don't think people mean it in a hurtful way. I think we're in this world of, oh my gosh, she's broken. We've got to fix her. We've got to put her back together. When just let me be in whatever area, whatever sense, whatever part of grief I'm at. Just let me be in that. Tell me that you're thinking of me. It's really simple. I think we overcomplicate, how we need to interact with someone who has lost their child. Letting them know you're there is huge because, I already feel isolated as it is because I lost my child, right? There aren't that many people around that I know that have lost a child. So I'm already different. Okay. So when you tell me things that make me feel like I'm not doing this right, I'm just doing this how I feel today. I think if someone who has lost a child crosses your mind, I've always said, if they cross your mind, then that's your sign that you need to reach out to them. And obviously Jace's favorite color was green. So one of the little emojis on our phone is a green heart. And I tell people, if you simply just send me a green heart, that is more than any word you could ever speak to me. One, because it's specific about Jace. You think about green, you think about that, and you send that to me. And because I've always told people, like, I'm more than likely needing that at that moment. If you think about me and you send a quick little text saying, I'm thinking about you, or it's just that simple. Don't avoid somebody because they're grieving. It's okay to walk up and say, hey, you know what? I was thinking about Jace last night. Because I was too, and so I want to know what you're thinking about. Someone told me the other day that their little boy came up to them. He had never met Jace. He's only heard the story through his parents. And he was like, Mom, Dad, you have to get me some more green shirts. And they were like, why? And he was like, because I was telling everybody about Jace today. I appreciated that story, even though it made me cry. But I want to know that my biggest fear as a DIPG grieving mother is that people are going to forget Jace. And so if you tell me those stories, or if you tell me that you're thinking about me, then you're probably remembering Jace. And that's what I want. Don't steer clear of me, but just be mindful at maybe what you're saying to others. If you just know that you don't have the magic words, you're not going to be able to just give me one sentence and I'm going to be like, you know what, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm over this.
Grief. Over. Thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate that. No, it's just letting people know that you're there, that they're not alone, because they already feel it anyway. And I don't really encourage people to put your beliefs on that other person. Like everybody has their own, religious and faith beliefs and different things like that, but you don't know where other people are. So I think it's just simple, thinking about you.
Yep.
I'm here for you.
So men are ridiculous when it comes to sharing our emotions. I will admit. So I am terribly terrified of triggering something in someone that's been through trauma or grief or that is grieving. And so sometimes that's what will hold me back from bringing it up. And I even think about my own mother, right? And when my grandfather, and I was very close to my grandfather, right? If I start talking about him too much, I'll start crying. Well, I can't ask my mom about my grandfather without her immediately and it's been probably, I think, 6 years since he passed. And so I've caught myself, though, and been challenging myself more to ask her more because, she might be having a great day. Well, I'm in my mind, because I'm just a guy, I'm going, if I trigger this in her, is that going to wreck the rest of her day? Right. And obviously I don't want that to happen. So what do we do? And I'm saying guys, because I'm just really making fun of myself and men in general here. But if we can just kind of move past it without triggering something, or, but it's kind of ridiculous to think, oh, well, she was having a great day and then I just wrecked her day. When would you get triggered? Let's say, like, walk me through that in a situation where, okay, you're going through your day and it's not that you haven't thought about Jace that day, but you're in life and here you are in the grocery store and someone walks up to you and says something to you, and you just said, like, you start crying and, it makes you emotional and you appreciate the stories. What happens after that? Are any of the moments that it pulls you back into and the grief in that moment, is it ever not worth it for you to feel those feelings in that moment? Like you were having a good day and then all of a sudden that just puts you on a whole nother path the rest of the day? Does that happen? Or am I, as a male, just drastically underestimating, overthinking about it? Yeah.
No, nothing has ever been said to me that wrecked my day. No, my days aren't easy anyway.
Yeah.
So, if you bring Jace up or some sort of story, or if you ask me how I am and I completely break down, sometimes I feel bad. I feel bad for the person that's standing there now looking at me lost because they think that very thing, oh my gosh, she was smiling 5 minutes ago and now she's crying, and I just say, listen, I'm sad all the time. Okay. I lost my son, so I'm always sad. So I'm sorry for the uncomfortable tears, but you're not gonna ruin my day. And I've never had the moment where I walked away and I thought, oh my goodness, why did they stop and talk to me? Or why did they ask me how I was? I appreciate it. There are a lot of people that, since child loss is so hard to talk about and people just cannot imagine, so they just don't even want to go there. But I encourage, others to, if you know someone that has lost a child or lost a parent or anything, it's okay to say, hey, I'm just thinking about you today. Yeah. I'm better now at being able to listen to those stories, or like the thing I was just talking about with the little boy. I'm better at listening to those things now. They still upset me, but nothing has ever been said to me that has made me think, I just wish people would leave me alone.
Yeah.
It isn't that. Talking to people that have lost children, we all feel kind of the same thing, that people just kind of walk around on eggshells around us, or I'm going to act like this didn't exist. And I'm like over here screaming inside saying, just ask me how I'm doing, or come up and, let's talk about the weather. I don't know. Just engage people. And, because we just don't want to feel, put to the side just because it's uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the reality of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like the support, the physical support of stuff. It's kind of follow your gut with that stuff,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Let's talk about Warrior Jace Foundation. Okay. So you're doing a lot of work right now with DIPG, and you're raising a lot of money for DIPG. What does it go to, and what are you doing today that you're excited about with Warrior Jace Foundation?
Yeah. So, the Warrior Jace Foundation is my husband and me and my parents. We work full time, and then this is our side gig, but very important to us. So we work on raising awareness of DIPG because so many people don't know about it. But we also raise money for DIPG clinical trial research. So since there are so few clinical trials in the country, we just try to find what specific it is to DIPG. And since we've started in 2019, I think we've given over $225,000 to
Wow.
Children's National in Washington, D.C., where Jace received his care, and that's just a few of us, working hard and, trying to get his story out there. But that's our purpose now. Our purpose for our foundation is to donate our funds to research. And that's what we feel is most important, because we don't want people to have to go what we went through. So if we feel like we can donate and help on the front end, that we hope that you never have to experience this horrific cancer.
Yeah. Well, and what is your website?
At www.warriorjace.org.
Warriorjace.org. All right. So follow along in Facebook, and do you do Instagram much, or is mostly Facebook page?
Mostly Facebook.
Yeah. Follow the stories, though. I mean, I would encourage everybody to get on there and just see what this organization is doing, and knowing that the dollars that go to Warrior Jace Foundation actually go to DIPG research.
Correct.
And that's what we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I started Live Like Warriors, is because I'm tired of giving to organizations where 5% of the actual dollar that I give actually goes to the cause. That's ridiculous.
Right.
And while the CEO is getting a $600,000 salary and stuff like that, it's like, no, that's not what people are giving for. We need to find real causes, specific needs that need to be filled, and we need to fill them. Right. And the fact that Warrior Jace Foundation is doing that, that is going towards, it's actually going towards DIPG research. And you even told me before that when you go and have had these trials, it's contractual that the money that you're giving that trial is DIPG specific, correct?
Yeah. I mean, and that's mainly, that's what we say. We want to give you this money, but you need to show us that this is exactly where it's going to go to.
Yeah.
And we do that. I tell people, I would love for you to donate to the Warrior Jace Foundation, but educate yourself. When you're going to give to a nonprofit, take the time to see maybe where those funds are going.
Yep.
And I can tell you that ours, you have some fees that you have to pay, but ours, that's why we stay small. And we don't have paid employees. We work outside of this, and that's where our money goes, is to research. Yeah,
it's a great cause, and an amazing family that's pushing it. So lastly, this is the ugliest cough that I've ever had in my life. Lastly, I want to talk about this owl that's above our shoulder here. So tell me the story about the owl. Where does that come from? Because that's kind of become a symbol for Warrior Jace.
Sure. So Jace, like I was saying earlier, he's an old soul. So, I guess where most kids would probably like dogs and cats and horses, he somehow fell in love with owls. And when my parents would take him to daycare in the mornings, there was a specific stop sign they would stop at. And for some reason, most mornings around 9 a.m., there was a big old owl sitting on a limb next to where they stopped. And so he started noticing that, and they would have conversations, and that's where Mr. Hootie came from. So that was Mr. Hootie, and he just loved owls. And the night that he left us, we went out to the back deck. We live in the country, so yeah, you would think you would hear owls often, but we really didn't. But that night that he left, we went out onto the back deck, and it was the loudest owl I have ever heard. And it was, feet inside the woods from our deck. And not that I'm some weird person that I think that was Jace coming back, but it was just something that he loved so much. And I'm a big believer in signs. And I just felt that was what he sent. And the owl thing has grown so much. The Warrior Jace Facebook page, has a lot of followers, and I'm so grateful that people are still listening to our story. And it is amazing how many things that have to do with owls exist in this world. And I've received gifts from all over the country, hundreds of gifts, and I've never had a duplicate owl.
Wow.
And so that's just kind of this owl here someone sent to us, and I have owls all over my house. It just gives me a little sense of comfort when I see one, and I love seeing all the different things people find. But yeah, if you come to my house and probably even outside, you're going to see a lot of things with owls.
Yeah.
But it's so specific to him, and I love it because it's so different.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, most 4 and 5 year olds don't. What's your favorite thing?
Right.
An owl. And that's Jace's. And so that's one other thing that makes him so different and so special.
Yeah, I agree. Well, so if you're listening to this, next time you see something in the store and it's an owl, I hope you think of Warrior Jace. And you think of his amazing story. That catchphrase he had, can't stop me, with his thumbs up. And I hope that encourages that you listening, like, can't stop me.
That's
you know, if you lived one more day of your life with that attitude, your day will be impactful. Can't stop me, right? Because we're all fighting something, and we'll take that inspiration from Jace more than just a day. And I hope that the owl is a great example or a great reminder for all of us with that. So thank you for everything that you do, and I know that this is never the chapter, never the story that you would have written for yourself, for Jace, for Eric, for Blake. And none of us would have written the story the way that it has gone. We would have had many more just normal kid stories and chapters. But I'm very proud that I did know him, even though I never got to meet him in person. I'm very proud I got to know him. He inspires me. And I thank you for what your family does. You brought me up a truck. We've got a little Mohawk Warrior truck. That was from the video that Jace, that you sent me, of him playing with the truck. So we are going to take that and put that up in the real Mohawk Warrior truck.
He'll love that. We
are going to zip tie it up somewhere tight because it gets a little bouncy whenever I'm jumping that thing in the air and doing backflips in the Mohawk Warrior truck. But we're going to get that thing and make sure that his Mohawk Warrior truck gets the proper ride.
That's right.
The proper ride along. And we know Jace will get a kick out of that.
He sure will.
He's already messing with us, though, because all of our lights keep shutting off in our studio. So I don't know what we'll do with this video. If I do post it and you think that our studio has gotten a little bit dark, it has.
It has. Because
all of the green lights and all the stuff, everything just one by one started shutting off. So thanks a lot, Jace.
Like I said, signs.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having us, and thank you for being so genuine and real and wanting to tell people's story. I appreciate that.
Well, it is an honor. So many more great things to come. So it's fun that we get to support each other, more campaigns to work on together, keep being an angel out there, and we'll continue to show people that there's a big, huge community out there that they may not even know that supports them. And if you're listening and you're not part of my Warrior Chain on Live Like Warriors, please join it. I love getting a lot of people doing a little bit. And when we do that, we can do a lot.
Absolutely.
And so join my Warrior Chain. It's obviously free. Go to livelikewarriors.com and just go to the contact button. And that's the only thing the contact button is for, is so that you can sign up for that Warrior Chain. And that'll get you the emails whenever we kick off a campaign. That's who I send it to, is the Warrior Chain that's saying, hey, keep me updated on campaigns and things that are going on. And we do have content, like this podcast episode is going to go to our Warrior Chain first. So please be a part of that. But we appreciate you guys listening. We're having fun just telling stories like Warrior Jace, Can't Stop Me. And I hope it's a blessing to you. I know it's a blessing to me. It's inspiring for myself. And so for us at the Warrior Jace Foundation and Live Like Warriors, keep it up, everybody. And we will see you all on the battlefield.
See you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Live Like Warriors podcast. Do us a favor and share this with one person today. You never know who desperately needs to hear this message. And don't forget to join our Warrior Chain at livelikewarriors.com. We'll see you on the battlefield.